without further ado, a round of applause for Adrian behind the desk.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. He talks a lot, doesn't he? Okay, how am I going to start? I started to talk to the writer who's writing a piece about this for the campus, I guess. I got started out in this business by accident. I spent 4 years in the Air Force after getting out of high school. Well, back then, upon graduation from high school, you had two choices. You either went to college, if you were eligible, or you went into the service. I was told by many people and given the feeling that I wasn't eligible to go to college. It was that plus I didn't have the money. My mother didn't have the money. I was raised by my mother only. We lived in the Bronx, South Bronx, Patterson Projects on 44th Street. So I set my own plan into motion at that time. And my plan was get into the service so I can get a GI Bill so I can go to college. That's the only way I figured I could go. So that's what I did. Now, my last year in the service, which was in 1970, we were given a book on careers. And in that book, there was a book about that thing. There was a 2-paragraph page that said, film and television, don't even try to get into it. There's a lot of nepotism. Your chances are really, really slim because it's a closed field. All right. To me, that sounded kind of interesting. But, I kind of let it go because I figured, well, hey, why me? So I took the test for the post office, the police department, passed them all, but never went because I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in something else, but I really didn't quite know what that something else was. Although probably inside of me, there was something working that I wasn't conscious of, which is what led me on to do what I eventually wound up doing. In any event, upon leaving the service, I met a young lady who was in theater. And so I started hanging out with the theater company called Theater Black, which then was affiliated with the Negro Ensemble Company. So I did a little acting on stage. Mind you, I didn't have any training. I wasn't even really interested in acting, but I was interested in the people who were involved in that, in theater. So I joined in. But that led me to doing some lighting for the Negro Ensemble Company's theater company. And we would go to different communities around New York City, setting up lights so the actors can put on performances in what we called then street theater. And NEC, Negro Ensemble Company, was involved in that kind of theater. Around the same time, I met this guy who was going out with the sister of this lady that I knew, who was into filmmaking. And he had gone through the Channel 13 Film and Television Training School. And he encouraged me to sign up for it. And I think because he wanted help in making films, because he was into documentary filmmaking, and it's difficult to get a crew. In any event, long story short, I signed up for the course. They had 750 applicants. They can only accept 50. I was one of the 50 that was accepted. Why? I don't know. The angel smiled on me, and I got in. That was a 46-week course in intensive film and television workshopping, where you go out and make films. You'd either shoot, produce, direct, whatever, but you were involved in filmmaking. And it was taught by professionals. I think we had an advantage over other schools with that because these professionals would tell you, they would get up in front of the classroom and tell you, look, if you're not interested in being in this business, get out now, because you got to love it. If you don't love it, forget it. It's not for you, all right? You got to be, when there's a call time for a shoot, you be there on time. If it's 6 o'clock in the morning, you be there 5:45. If it's 5 o'clock in the morning, you be there 4:45. And if you're not there by the time we're ready to leave, you're left behind, because we're going to be gone. That's how serious these people are. All right? And it was true, because there are many times when we left people behind. okay? And they didn't know where we were. So you were left out of the shoot. So anyway, that's the level of learning that I was exposed to. After that 46 weeks, I started freelancing, doing stuff for nothing, for free. As a matter of fact, my first shoot, I got a phone call from a guy named Dwight Williams, who was assistant director of a documentary on Louis Farrakhan, who was giving a speech out of Randall's Island. And I got a phone call, and said, hello? He said, hello. Can you AC with assistant camera? I said, yeah. All right, be out of Randall's Island in 10 minutes. I said, fine. I packed all my tools together because you had to have tools when for film, when you're an assistant cameraman. And assistant cameraman's job was to put the cameras together, put the film into the camera, make sure everything was clean and ready to go. So when it got to the cinematographer, he was able to shoot. Okay? So I got to Randall's Island in a cab with my tools, found the crew. Where's Dwight Williams? I'm Dwight. Come on with me. He led me to a station wagon with the back down. This is what I want you to do. We got 3 cameras. We got 2 Arabiels and an Eclair. You got to change the film in all of these cameras and while the guys are shooting. I said, fine. It was about 90 degrees on a Saturday afternoon in July. I'm standing here at the lip of this, I think it was a Chevy or Ford station wagon with a changing bag, and guys would come to me with rolls of film, put them in the bag, flip it up. I don't know if you've ever seen a film changing bag, but it's like a black bag with 2 sleeves in it. You slip your arms through. You don't see anything, okay? You can only feel what you're doing. So I'm in there doing this, putting them in a can, taking the film out of the can, putting it back in the film blimp, all right? Closing it up, taking it out of the bag, giving it to the other AC who will then take it to the camera. I did that for 6 hours. And it was fun. And the reason why it was fun is because you gotta love the work, man. Because if you don't love it, it's gonna hurt you. And if it's gonna hurt you, you're not gonna do well. If you don't do well, you don't have the job. It only takes one job, one screw up, and you don't work. And that's the way the film business was. So anyway, having done 6 years of that kind of fun between being either an AC or a lighting person or whatever, there were a lot of freebies. But then after you developed enough skill, then you get the jobs that pay. And you get paid like 50 bucks a day for lighting. Or if you're an assistant cameraman back then, you got like 150 bucks a day. But that's 150 or 50 bucks worth of huge responsibility. As a lighting guy, you set up the lights, you got to know what a 750 stud was, what an Inky was, what a 1000K light was. You know, just like you see here, you had to like, if the cinematographer or the lighting director wanted it, bang, you got it. It's like clockwork. Why? Because film and video operates like a machine. Everybody has to be in sync, all right? So anyway, long story short, did 6 years of that, went to City College, where I met Jeff, and Ronald, and my friend Sandy Burton back there, we had classes with. And we did a lot of films. My junior year, I needed a paying job because I had a family. There's a guy named Mal Albaum, who was one of the instructors at Channel 13. And I said, Mal, and one of Channel 13 said, Mal, you know, I need a gig, man, you know, and I'm tired of this freelancing job because you always got to chase people down for the money. People will not pay you. I mean, not pay you. I had a job down in South Carolina. We came back after 2 weeks, and I was the only one to get money because I beat everybody else to the director, producer. I was the only one that got paid, you know. So anyway, I got tired of that stuff. So he said, well, look, I got some friends over at ABC. I'll give them a call, let them know that you're coming over, and you have an interview. So I went to see a guy named Roy Robbins, Very nice man. This is in 76. No, 75. 75. And had like a 10-minute interview. I was ready with all this technical stuff about TV. I was ready to answer questions, you know. And, you know, one thing about equipment, you can teach anybody about equipment. You can learn this stuff backwards and forwards. So you had a lot of experience? Yeah. You know, you did a lot of film? You shoot? Yeah. Okay. Tell you what, we'll call you in about a week. Okay. All these books that I mean, I was like ready, you know, what's the diode tube? What's this, you know, what's this, what's that? What kind of camera? We'll call you in about a week. I said, fine. We'll come back. We trained on studio cameras for about a week. And I'd never operated a TV studio camera before, but having been through film, it was a piece of cake, man. It was like nothing to it. All you really had to do was like, make sure you steered it right. Because it was like driving a bus. You had a big ring, you know, you ran it, you know, you set your wheels and you pushed it, you know. But the trick is, especially if you're going to do a soap, is be able to push that camera around and keeping the image in the frame. So you had to be able to move, right, and keep the person right there, or move back, truck back and forth, zoom in and out, you know. All that kind of skill, that's something that you have to develop, you know. Working in a group, you have to be able to get along with people, because there are a lot of assholes out there. You know, they're just there, you know, but you have to be able to work with them, you know, whether they're nice or not. You know, it takes a certain level of skill to do that. The cameras back then had tubes in them. So you had to be in early to set up the tubes, make sure they're focused, you know, make sure they're aligned, you know. And I'm not going to get into all that stuff because you were just born like, what, a couple of years ago, right? So you wouldn't know about that. But, you know, it's very technical. These days, we don't have to do any of that. The video op comes in, he sets the levels, the cameras are fine. Yeah. He doesn't need a camera operator to come and do anything. We just show up for the meeting. And the difference between the technology then and the technology now, back then, you needed a maintenance guy to look at the cameras, and you had to be careful you didn't point at lights, otherwise you burn. You have a burn in the tube, you know, and you wouldn't be able to use the camera anymore. Now these cameras, man, you can throw them into the sun, you can pan in and out. I mean, it's beautiful. No tubes to deal with. It's just memory. It's all computers. Nothing bothers these cameras now, you know, and they're great, down to the smallest one that we have now. The cameras that we have now for what they call prosumers, they're great looking cameras. They're so good that people are doing pieces now, just throwing them on television, and you know something, you look at it and you say, yeah, okay, I can accept that, you know, because the look doesn't throw you off. It's just, they're beautiful pictures, you know. And some of these cameras just love the dark, whereas the old cameras, light and dark, forget it, man. You really had to be careful. But anyway, that's technical stuff. You don't want to hear that. The fun stuff is that when you're doing film or television, you get to work with a lot of really, really nice people. You get to work in some locations that are really, really beautiful. But it all starts from the desire and the love that you have in order to get into the profession and to last. The other big difference between then and now is that there are more freelance people working. When I first got in, you can get in as a staff person, whether it be ABC, NBC, CBS. Become a staff person, be part of a union, so you didn't have to worry about your wages because that's negotiated by a collective bargaining agreement. And so, you know, you didn't have to go into the boss and ask for a raise. These days, as a freelancer, you set your price. Somebody wants you to do something, they want to know how much you're going to charge them. And freelancing, you charge anywhere from $350 to $700 a day. But that's if you're good, you know. And the only way they're going to know if you're good or not is not by resume. but it's by who you know. And it could be the person sitting next to you that may recommend you or may not recommend you. When I was in the WNET training school, the first day of class, they told us is look at the guy next to you. This is the person who may get you the job or may not get you the job. Because this is the person who may become a producer or director or whatever, and they're going to know how serious you are about what you're learning. So they know whether or not they're going to hire you. And that's the way it is out in the world. So anyway, that's my story.
Adrian, could you tell the class a little bit about your experience with Joan London and Gibson those years? Because I remember when I came on the set, they were like, I felt like I was in a Cub Scout meeting. They knew you as intimate as anyone else on the set.
Well, they're really not nice people. Joan, first of all, well, what happens is when you work with people long enough, you really get to know not only the people, but you know their families as well. So, you know, Joan would bring her kids every now and then, and, you know, we'd play, you know. I mean, it's just like that. I'd bring my kids in, you know, they're like, oh, hi, how are you? You know, they talk, and it's just that kind of atmosphere. I've got, I made a DVD of one of the things where we had, huh? It's not working? Oh, well.
How about if we put it on a laptop? No? I tried to play it. Okay.
All right, well, in any case, I'm sorry.
We still have two clips. We have a scene from our first film, Violence Has No Enemies, and a scene of your son in a Star Wars film.
Okay, cool. But what you're not going to see is an interview that, well, one day, well, let me backtrack even more. My son Ahmed was doing a show called Stomp, okay, which is downtown in the Village. He was in one of the original casts. And he had gone to California to do the Academy Awards presentation where Stomp did a routine where they would synchronize with old movies. Well, you know, Charlie Gibson, who was then one of the hosts for Good Morning America, saw it, and he wanted me to comment on the act, you know. So I did an interview on Good Morning America with Charlie and Joan. And Charles starts out with saying, Adrian Best is behind one of our cameras shooting me, and Joan and I, but I want him to come in front and talk about Ahmed doing Stomp for the Academy Awards. So I came out, got on camera, and was talking about that. But I mean, it's all about family. It's like being included into the family. So since we're all so tight, you know, he said, hey, you know, this is about family. Come on, talk about your kid. You know.
Did they have to pay you Screen Actors Guild minimum to do that interview?
Actually, we had in our contract, because we're fighting it again now, but we had in our contract that if we're on camera for the show, we get a certain amount of money. It's not SAG money, but, you know, it's what we negotiated. But they didn't care, you know, it's about being on. But that was a lot of fun.
Did that interview help your son get the role?
No. No. You mean for Star Wars?
Can you tell a little about that? Because Fernando's going to cue it up. I thought it would be something they can write about.
Okay. Am I bragging?
Journals, and this is something to write about.
All right. Well, my son Ahmed was doing Stomp, like I said.
How many of you know about Stomp? Raise your hand. How many of you have seen the performance of Stomp?
If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's really hip. Very, very hip. It's a bunch of kids like you all who are talented, who are either dancers or percussionists. They train them to do these routines, and they get on stage, and it's hard work. It's hard on the joints because it's like 2 hours of like nonstop percussion music, you know. But it's really good. It's really, really good. But the way Ahmed got into it,
this is your middle. This is the older.
well, I got twin boys, all right, and my daughter is a year older than the guys. But Ahmed was doing Stomp. He auditioned for it. They trained him. He did the show. He was on tour, and he wound up in San Francisco. Now, it just so happens that George Lucas's people went to see Stomp, but they wanted to see somebody else in the cast to audition for Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars. So they went to see the show. They saw Ahmed and the guy. Instead of just asking for the guy that they were interested in, they asked for both Ahmed and the other guy, wherever that happened to be. They both auditioned. They called my son Ahmed back for a second call. About 2 or 3 weeks later, he had the part. Now, he did this on his own. I don't know Lucas, or any of his people. This is something that he got. He got this by his own talent, okay? I did get to know George after we went to England, though, to watch them shoot it, which was a lot of fun. But he's just a talented guy, and he got it. It was like hitting the lottery. It was beautiful. And he was in all 3 of the Star Wars episodes.
Do you think your involvement in film and television inspired him at an early age to go into
I think that it made him fearless. I think it made him so familiar with the medium that he felt comfortable, because I would bring all 3 of them onto the set every now and then, and they were fine. But also, I mean, both myself and his mother is a percussionist. So he was trained a lot by his mother, musically, So, plus buying the drum set for Christmas didn't hurt. It hurt me, because at 11 o'clock at night, you don't want to hear all that noise. So we yell at him, Ahmed, stop that banging, it's over. Yeah. Now his production company out in LA is called Stop That Banging Productions. So there is a legacy. And that's true. And he's doing very well out there. He's got his own recording studio he's set up in the back of his house, and he's really doing well out there. He's producing out in LA, so he's doing very well.
Is his connections with George Lucas Productions, did it help him in any way?
Only probably as an advisor, because he said he and George would have lunch occasionally, and he would ask George a lot of questions, sure. And we went to Skywalker Ranch, spent the night, and the place is fabulous. But that's just a perk, yeah.
So without further ado, Fernando has a scene. Those of you that have not seen this movie, this is Adrian's son, Jar Jar Binks, in The Phantom Menace.
That's not him.
No, coming up.
Lights, thank you. Got audio problems. See, this is what happens when you only got one guy operating everything. There he is.
That won't be necessary.
Oh, but it is. Tis demanded by the gods, it is. Hey now. You saved my attack.
What's this? A local. Let's get out of here before we draw each other.
What? More than you say? Excuse me, but she wants to see this place. With Redonda City. It's where I grew up. Tis a hidden city.
City.
Uh-huh.
Can you text that?
On second thought? No. Not really, no. It's embarrassing. And, might afraid might have been banished. Might forgotten. The bosses would do terrible things to me. Terrible things to me of me going back there. Yeah?
That is the sound of 1,000 terrible things heading this way.
If they find us, they will
much further. This is going in the water, okay? I might warn you, there's no lacking outside here, so don't expect to run welcome.
Oh, don't worry. This hasn't been our day for warm welcomes.
What's up on the hour today?
I have to ask
That's
this
good.
question, Adrian. I bought the toy for my son when this came out. I saw it, an article. I actually watched that piece when you were on being interviewed.
Mhm.
Does he get a share of the money for all those toys, those Jar Jar Binks toys?
No,
Oh, shit. So, do you have to build into your contract if you're going to become a George Lucas toy that you want a cut of the action?
if George will agree to it.
George, just by the way, I did a little research before Adrian's visit. The Star Wars spin-off of toys, the movies have made $1 billion, but the Star Wars spin-off of toys have made $10 billion. That's 10 times more than the whole series. That's a lot of money for toys. And Adrian's son is probably in millions of homes.
Including mine.
Including your, did they give you a big one? A big one?
Well, we got one like that, but what he gave us was the Star Wars pinball machine. And when you play and you score, it shows the pod race. It's great, man. You know, you want to score because you want to see the kid go, and they have all the explosions and everything, and it's in stereo. It's really good.
Well, I just want to add, I think this is great. Of all the guests we have someone whose son is in the George Lucas movie. I just think that's fascinating. And I think what I wanted to add to this, whenever there was events happening on campus, and a lot of us, would sleep in the editing room or, be available on the weekend, Adrian would go home. And I know we talk about that in class, that network television sometimes is such a demanding schedule. And if you have a family like Adrian did, you have to be there for the school plays, for the teacher conferences. You can't just hide in the editing room. And if you do, you won't come home to a family sometimes. But I have a lot of respect for Adrian at a young age that he did that, and I got to go home now. And part of the success of going home, becoming a dad, is this. And that your child is just loaded with information, in Adrian's case in the business, working in show business, and he knows the requirements and what goes into it. But I wanted to add, if you don't know about this character, a lot of it was the first character, I think, that was animated.
Yeah.
With
That
live
way,
action, That way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was revolutionized the animation industry with live action and George Lucas's unique animation. But your son's, his face is in there, his hand movements.
Yeah, what happened too was that when they were actually doing it, he had the figurehead on top of his head so he could be taller, So the Jar Jar Binks' head would be up here on top of his head, then you see his face, then the rest of the body, So they animated the whole thing on that. And it's funny, there are some outtakes of this where he and Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor are in the pod underwater, and they go into this other place, and they're dying, man. I mean, they're just telling jokes, and they are just crying. It's like about actors trying to like loosen up before making it kind of like, because Liam Neeson is very serious. He's a very no biz, no nonsense kind of actor. And so I think Ahmed helped him loosen up, and he kept talking about Ahmed as like he's the next Eddie Murphy or something. I said, could you think of somebody a little better? But no, Eddie is funny.
I wanted to also add, we're about to show a clip when Adrian agreed to come and speak with you. I picked out a clip from the first film we worked on for two reasons. Number one, you're going to be hopefully in a film or TV program if you decide this is the venue for you. And you're going to meet students that are more experienced. I had never shot in 16mm film. I did not know how to use the lenses. It was all new to me. I actually stuck myself in an editing room with you and Ronald and 9 other kids, and I learned how to cut with the scissors. And it was learning by doing. But I'll never forget in this particular scene, we just let the actors work improvisation, do their thing. But Adrian knew the structure, knew how it would cut, and really walked me through this process. And I never forgot that experience. It gave me the enthusiasm to one day join the Directors Guild and say, hey, you know what, I can do it too. I know how to do it now. It's all demystified for me. My teachers, Joe Tavner, showed us how to do it. And you're going to learn, you know, so many years later, we were in an analog world. When you come here to BCC, you're going to be in a digital world. We're going to teach you how to do it. And we're going to demystify it to you. You probably won't learn how to make Jar Jar Binks speak like that and walk like that. We're not that sophisticated in, what is it, industrial magic and light?
That was birth.
Birthday. Well, you're going to learn how to make movies and how to make TV shows. So in this 2-minute clip, take a look at a young filmmaker working with an experienced cinematographer, and I hope you enjoy it. And this is a film called Violence Has No Enemies. It was based on an Alfred Hitchcock episode that I saw as a teenager. And we're not going to show you the whole thing. It's a half hour. Just when they start running, 3 kids get into some big trouble. And you might notice the newspaper salesman, he has a beard, a young beard, and he happens to look a little bit like me.
He was thinner too.
He was a lot thinner. And I, like Hitchcock, always took a walk-on in every film I directed. And this is my first walk-on. Tell me if you think I did a good job. And I recommend all of you get a walk-on. Where is that guy, Adrian?
Yes, sir. Revenue. All right.
Okay, baby, this is the sucker we've been waiting for. Remember what I told you and everything will be just fine, okay, baby?
Well, Frankie, I've never done anything like this before, and besides, that guy looks strange.
All right, now look, Maria. We went over this all morning. It has to be done. Look, come on, baby. Raja and me will be right behind you. You got nothing to worry about, okay? Now give me a smile.
Frankie, please stay real close now.
That's my baby. Now go and get him before he gets away. Baby, let's take this motherfucker he's got.
They'll be doing a retrospective on our work at the Guggenheim, so you'll have to come to see the rest of this there. Actually, we do have enough films. It's very funny. About a month ago at the film festival, one of our other colleagues attended, whom hopefully will also get to come and speak here. And we spoke about getting together and talking about our old work. It's very nice to keep in touch with your classmates. Don't ever forget that George Lucas keeps in touch with Francis Coppola, And
He does, yeah.
Steven Spielberg,
Yeah.
they, you know, I'm sure they party once in a while. You know, they hang out and they talk about movies. So get used to getting, don't get rid of those phone numbers, those email addresses that you got this summer. Everyone in this class will hopefully keep in touch in some way, whether you come to this program or not. This was a great experience. It's not over yet. And hopefully you'll establish a relationship. What I want to do is open it up for questions. And I know that several of you have questions, or you've been thinking of things to ask Adrian. So who would like to ask the first question? Jonathan? Yeah. Does I see your hand? Yeah.
Yeah, go
Hi,
ahead.
Jonathan. Say your name, your full name.
Jonathan Jones. Like, do you think you have to be a sports fan or like played in sports to be a good, to like to know how to capture the images and stuff when you're on the
What you have, where that comes in handy is when a director wants a particular person. I used to do Monday Night Football, and it was important for me to know who the coach was, who the important players were, what the positions were, you know, and how to follow the ball. You know, so yeah, that comes into play. Also, we used to hire a lot of guys like you to stand next to a camera guy, and we're depending upon him to know not only the name but the number of the player. So if I'm looking for whoever, you know, I turn to you, where is he? And you can point, you have binoculars, you can point him out. So yeah, that helps.
Thanks. Just to add to that, I know we've spoken that you've shot in golf. You follow golf balls at major golfing events. Are you a
Yes.
golfer?
No,
So how do you know how to follow Tiger Woods' golf ball?
you learn.
I mean, how about the Indy 500? I mean,
Yeah.
those cars, how do you pan so fast? I mean, do you practice like a day before?
You learn.
How do you follow? You get the gist. Adrian doesn't drive a car, an Indy car with Paul Newman and do salad dressing.
Although I met him.
Okay. He's met everybody. All these famous people you've met.
A lot of them, yeah.
And he doesn't play golf, but he knows how to shoot golf. He knows how to follow a car for the Indy 500. I remember when they did the Democrat National Convention, you were featured in the Daily News.
That's right.
One of the new cameras, the HD.
They were, yeah, that was the director, Roger Goodman, a good friend of mine, or enemy, depending upon how I feel on a particular day. Roger had this idea of having Peter Jennings look at a monitor while reporting. So I became Peter Jennings' cameraman for a couple of conventions. But this one, the first one, he wanted me to wear a monitor on my chest and hold the camera and shoot Peter, and the teleprompter was going to be on the front of the lens of the camera. So I'm like, no. But he said, wait, hold, I got a great idea. This is great. You'll love it. You know, it won't be any problem at all. Now, we had a great unit, an RF unit, radio frequency unit. These guys invented stuff for ABC. I mean, literally, they said, if ABC said we wanted to do anything, these guys say, okay, we'll do it. And they'll come up with something. So what they did was they came up with a flat screen TV that weighed maybe about 6 pounds, and they configured it so it would strap over my shoulders and around my waist. It weighed like next to nothing. Okay, it was beautiful, and the way they had strapped was, I could wear it and not know that I had anything on. Okay, so that was the first obstacle, and they came up with it. It was no wires. All right, they had a receiver, a separate receiver, and it was able to capture the signal, all right, and the transmitter. The teleprompter was configured maybe about that high, about that wide, all right? And what I did was I rigged a monopod so it would support the front end because it made the lens a little heavy. So the configuration is the monitor here, the monopod here, the camera was on my shoulder, but most of the weight was on the monopod, and I was able to operate this way. I'm wearing the headset. My friend Roger says, pal, get rid of the monopod. I'm like, what? I I want a handheld. I don't want to see the monopod. Get rid of the monopod. I'm like, Peter, I'm not going to get rid of the monopod. He said, don't worry about it. Pal, get rid of the monopod. I want your handheld. Don't want it. Now, if I took that thing off, the camera shot would look like this, because I'm trying to balance this weight. Peter gets on the line, on the microphone. Roger, he's not getting rid of the monopod. That was it. Peter was the boss. Okay, Peter, that's all you hear. He probably was pissed the rest of the time, but you know, it saved me. Okay? Now, 4 years later, he wanted me to do it again. By this time, they got rid of that RF unit. Okay? These really brilliant, and I mean truly brilliant guys who were scientists, you know, when it came to electronics, these guys are brilliant. Got rid of the unit because of money. All right? The networks are always trying to save on money. So where do they cut it? On the engineering end. All right? And they do it every frickin' time. You know, it burns me to no end. We put these people on the air. We are responsible for their images, and they always want to cut our throats. And you can, I'll record that and repeat it again. All right? I'll be on the record with that because it really is a detriment to the industry. So anyway, they get rid of the unit. They hire some freelance guys to design the same thing. I tried to wear it the first day, you know, before the convention started. I'm like, I can't use this. It's just too bulky. It's not going to work. You only have to wear it for a couple hours, pal. No, man, I can't do it. That's the way Roger talks. He's a very funny guy. So he takes it off me and says, all right, give it to the other guy. So he gives it to this younger, strapping, ENG, you know, this guy's like been out in the field, you know what I mean? This guy's like, he's a little shorter than me, but like, you know, yeah, you know, really like. So he puts it on. About 3 hours later, I'm not wearing this piece of, you know, forget it. You know, I'm not wearing it, you know. That's what I'm talking about. So it winds up never being used again. But in the meantime, I'm on the run of technical magazines, you know, for like 5 years. The Daily, no, the Times, the Downs, and the Daily News ran pictures of me with this contraption on. They called it the Teletubby. You know, and I'm standing with the camera, you know, and I'm looking like an ad, you know. Yeah. But the first time it was fine. Second time, 4 years later, forget it. It was awful.
One of the things we spoke about is the non-traditional hours for network television.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Joel Goldberg, who works the midnight to 8 shift,
sure,
doing the graphics for my role for news. Can you talk about what a day is like? Because you've been on that. Good Morning America, for those of you that don't watch it, goes on at 7.
7 o'clock. You have to be there at 5.
So could you talk about what a day would like? Just how long it takes you to get to the studio and how it plays out?
I try to get up at 3:30 in the morning because I live in New Jersey now. So when I roll out of bed at 4, I jump into the shower, do everything I need to do. I'm out of the house by 4:30, maybe 4:40. Now, a little side note. My grandfather used to work early hours when I was a kid. He used to listen here until like 4:30 in the morning. And I said, you know what? When I grow up, I'll never do that. Flash forward. So I'm in the studio at 5. At 5 o'clock, we're checking out cameras, make sure communication's working, make sure back focus in the camera. You know what back focus is, right? You operate cameras. All right. When you operate a camera, sometimes the lenses have to be checked, and sometimes the focus on the camera can be out. And it's usually, if that happens, it's the rear end of the focus. So you have to straighten out with the video op in order to operate the camera. So the lens tracks well. So from 1 millimeter to the next, you're in focus. So we have to check that out, make sure we can hear the directors, and control room, et cetera, et cetera. So at 5:30, we have our meeting. The meeting consists of what the show is going to be for the 2 hours we're on the air. And we talk about camera positions. We're going to talk about we have 2 levels we work on during the 2 hours, whether it's going to be upstairs or downstairs. We talk about what the opening is going to be, where the cameras are. We have 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 9 cameras that we that are in operation during the course of the show, and everybody has to know what they're doing. We have stage hands, we have stage managers that have to know what's going on, and the talent who are now Robin Roberts and Diane Sawyer, they have to know what's going on. So we discuss all of that at 5:30. 6 o'clock we may have rehearsals. We'll have rehearsals with demonstrations or with talent, you know, and we've had a lot of performers come in, Puffy or Kanye West has been on. We're doing concerts in the park on Friday. We had Patti LaBelle.
Not a boring day.
No, not at all, not at all. But yeah, so that's what goes on during the course of the day.
And 7 o'clock, you're on.
7 o'clock, we're on live every day.
And people watch you not only in New York, all across.
It goes from the west to the west coast, and it gets updated. You know, they don't see the Midwest and West Coast don't see us live. They see a tape show because they turn on the show at 7 o'clock. So being that their schedules are behind, they view the program by their schedule. But the East Coast sees it live.
And Adrian, if you can, just briefly, during events like 9...
Same question?
Really, the next one. 911, when something happens, when something goes on while you're on live, can you just tell us how things work?
Well, I can tell you what happened with 9/11 was that I was on my way downstairs for another segment to the bottom level when I was told to turn back around and come back upstairs. And we had to go back to our home base where Diane and then Charlie Gibson was. And we were watching the monitors, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. And we were ready to go on again live at 10 o'clock so we could update what was happening. But while we were preparing for that, we didn't know what was happening, so we had to assess before going on the air. And we just watched the whole thing crumble. Now, we have a roof level, which takes you outside, and you can see downtown. And all you can see is smoke. And like everybody else, we thought it was an accident, that it was maybe a small plane that crashed into the building. So we were waiting for this accident report. And, we had trucks go down there already to find out what was going on. And as the thing unfolded, we were like stunned, man, you know. And we were ready to go on the air live to report what was happening, you know. So, and we wound up staying there for 24 hours.
You never went home?
I went home.
Next question. Someone had a question about film versus television. Who was that? Yes, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Trevino.
Yeah, it's Michael.
I have a question for you. Would you prefer to do a major sporting event or a film or a soap opera?
Film.
Why so?
Film is film is very intense on another level. The wonderful thing about film, although it's kind of changed now because you can see stuff as being filmed, but film, you can concentrate on scenes, you can concentrate on the action, you can concentrate on emotion, feel. When you're shooting, there are certain ways of shooting things. Like, for example, shooting comedy. Comedy, you shoot broad. Why? Because you want to see the action. You want to see the comic things happen. You know, comedy is like wide. Drama is tight. You want to see the intensity. Like in the film we just saw, you want to see eyes. You know, you want to see what happens with money. You know, you want to see, you know, okay, what are they going to do next? You know, say, all right, the plan. You want to get in, you know. All that stuff is great. Sports is like, it's all action. It's like boom, boom. It's happening as, you see it as it's happening. It's live. You know, that's another kind of electricity, you know. It's good, but for me personally, I mean, there are guys that I know who love sports, spent their lives doing sports, and that's what they're into. So they would probably tell you the sports thing, you know. For me, I like the dramas thing. Soap operas are not given enough respect, especially now because everybody's trying to save money. And saving money, they try to do it in the shortest time possible. So they just they shoot the scene, they'll have rehearsals where they run through the actors run through the lines. Then they have dress rehearsals. Then they'll do the actual scene. You know, and because of the nature of video and the immediacy, everybody has his mindset of capture it now. You know, don't worry about the way it looks. You got it, fine. You know, only if it's something really, really severe will they do another take. Otherwise, forget it. Film, everything is like the lighting has to be right, the mood has to be right. You know, even when you do a commercial, I did a commercial. When I was doing the lighting. We were shooting a wine bottle. We went to a place called Winery, upstate New York. We were shooting the end of the commercial wine bottle. We had I think maybe 5 lights on this one bottle. We had a 5K where we put a hole through the what was it? A diffusion paper, right? Put a hole through just so we can have a beam of hard light hit that bottle just right. So when you shoot it, you look at that bottle and you go, I want that.
I bought that bottle.
You know, and when we got home, and I think maybe 2 weeks later, the commercial came on, man, that puppy worked. You know, it took us maybe 3 hours to set that shot up, but man, did it work. You wanted that bottle of wine. It was great. But, you know, it's that kind of stuff I really like. You know, you get to, like, concentrate on stuff.
We're going to do some more drama. We have a question. Someone had a question. How come I'm asking that question? You guys have a job.
Can I ask? What's your favorite soap opera?
It's on ABC.
Not necessarily. I think General Hospital, and that's done out in LA. But I think General Hospital because cats in Hollywood have a better feel of the dramatic, so they do it, I think, a little bit better. The way it's cut up, East Coast is about documentaries, West Coast is about drama and film and television. All right, that's how it's supported too. New York is like Fast and Furious and get it now. Hollywood is laid back. You know, even the Hollywood guys. You know, it's very funny. We used to like when we were doing golf or Indy 500 or whatever, something out in the Midwest. You know, you'd mix the New York guys with the LA guys. It's hysterical, man, because the New York guys would go, "How are we going to run that cable?" "Oh, well, you can run it around the stand, you know, be like that, you know. Then you can run it up the hill." "Nah, man, I don't want to do it that way." But LA guys would be like, "Cable run yet? Okay, let's get it over there." You know? Yeah, New York guys will talk a job to death, man. You know? But it's all about like kind of making the money too. Because it'll be like, "You want to run that cable now?" "No, let's take a 5. LA guys are like, "Look, I want to get back. Let's finish the job, so you know." And then the LA guys, when it comes to lunch, LA guys be like, laid back. New York guys be kinetic. Let's get that here. It's like drink coffee, 5 cups of coffee before noon. Yeah, it's really funny the difference between people. DC guys are kind of laid back too. The DC guys will give you like, "What are you guys talking about, man? Let's do the job." You know, they're the in-between guys, in between LA and New York. Yeah.
This brings up a question of unions. When I was on your set, Walters would not let you touch her mic.
That's right.
And someone went, "No, that's not your." Can you talk about the restriction between camera, sound, and union?
Yeah, there's a division of labor. All right. In the freelance world, it doesn't matter. All right, you do everything. All right. Even in small studios, if you go to small towns, you pretty much do everything. In big city, New York, DC, San Francisco, LA, you know, it's division of labor. You got your job, you don't go do my job. So if I'm a cameraman, you don't touch the mic, okay? That's the sound man's job. I'm a sound man, you don't touch my camera. Stagehands, they're even more intense, man. It's like, who told you you can do that? You don't do that. You know, and they'll get 12 guys around to let you know that you don't do that. You know, the Teamsters, man, you don't mess with that territory. You know what I'm saying? You know, you might wind up with a shank in your tire. But no, it's original labor, and it should be that way. It's got to be that way because the machine has to run, you know, and all parts have to be working, and they have to work independently but together. And that's really important. Even when you're on a freelance shoot, you know, jobs should be designated. You know, even if you got two jobs to do. If you got to shoot and mic somebody, you shoot and mic somebody. Somebody else has got to take notes. Somebody else has got to do the interviewing. You know, that's the best way to work. Now, if you can't afford it, then you multiply that, you know. But then you forget stuff, like feeding the crew.
I was good at that.
Okay? Yeah, Jeff was good at that. But everybody is not good. I've been guilty of it too. You know, you get so involved in the project that you forget to feed the crew. Right? So I don't care what you do, when you go out and work, don't forget to feed the crew. Because if you don't feed the crew, the job is not going to get done. Why? Because people will start getting dehydrated. They'll get weak because they ain't eating. You need fuel to burn, so feed the freaking crew. Okay.
Regarding food, when I was on the set, you have a tremendous amount of catering throughout the show. How do you not eat? I mean, I saw most of you guys look in great shape. How do you stay away from that great food they give?
We don't stay away, we eat it. But we burn it.
I mean, do you belong to gyms? Do you have an ABC gym?
No. And we tried to get the company to do that. No, we tried to get the company to do that, and they said, well, insurance, that's, please. No, you're busy enough so that you burn that stuff. Especially carbohydrates in the morning, very important, because that burns, okay? And we're so busy, we're eating during. When you get a break, you go back in to eat some more, because you're burning it. It's like running. You know, you go around running, you stop for a minute, you know, but you're going out running. You know, same thing with us. We're working, you stop for a minute, you eat, then you go back to work. But you need that fuel to burn.
Okay. Any other questions for Adrian? Yes.
Yes.
As a performer, I just wanted to know, like, what is it like, and like, in terms of like shots, what do you have to do to capture an artist and maybe their dancers or whoever's behind them to make it?
We're doing, you know, it's funny you mentioned dances because my sister Sandy and my brother Don over here, we're doing, you know Chuck Davis? All right, we're doing a documentary on Chuck Davis. And it's interesting that you mentioned dance because we're working on that subject matter. It always frustrates me when television people in particular, because film people do this well, when television people give you this on a dancer. Because it's like, what are they doing? I want to see the movement, and you're giving me this. You know, you have really top-notch directors who will do that. Why? Because they want to see the emotion on the person's face. That ain't what's happening. You know? And same thing with martial arts. American martial, when people in America shoot martial arts, they do a lousy job. Because they're always giving you this. You know, you want to see the stance. You want to see where the kick or the punch is going to come from. That's not going to happen if you're showing me this. You know, so that I find it really frustrating. As a performer, you know, it's wonderful when somebody like either Sophia Loren or Betty Davis, who used to come on the set, would come in, because it used to drive our lighting directors crazy because they would sit in there. Your key light is not quite right. You know, I mean, that's how these people, the old folks are educated. The younger ones, you know, they kind of ignore it. But the old pros, man, they would come in, boy, and tell you what light is where, and they would find it. It was like wonderful to watch the professionals come in. They would know, you know.
You seem to work like 26 hours a day. You have done Good Morning America, and now you're also doing a film documentary.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about doing
I don't think he sleeps, Mary. He hasn't slept for 26 years.
Well, you know, I'm not doing the documentary every day. You know, I mean, the thing I am doing every day is GMA. But it's like, it's about finding time to do the other stuff. Like aside from doing the project with Sandy and Don, we're also getting together on a project that is near and dear to me, which is growing up in the projects in the Bronx. I grew up in the Patterson Projects on 144th Street in the Bronx. And every time in my travels around the country, people ask me, well, where are you from? I would say from the Bronx. And either they would say, where's that? Or they would say, you mean the South Bronx? Yeah. Oh, man, you must have been rough growing up there. No. Because when I grew up, man, I mean, all right, yeah, we had fights, we had stabbings, you know, I mean, but it wasn't anything unusual. The people that I grew up with were both academically and athletically competitive, you know, and a lot of them who are around my age or a little younger have grown up to be very professional people, you know. And so my documentary, the project that I'm working on now, is about those people who grew up and made something of themselves in spite of growing up in the South Bronx, in the projects. When I was a child, we were able to leave our doors open, you know, and the neighbors next door would, you know, leave their doors and we'd see each other and say hello, especially during the summertime. You know, when it was hot, cross ventilation, you open the windows and the door. We used to war against the Melrose projects during the summertime, you know, but it was like they would come down over, or we go over there maybe 3 times during the summer, then the rest of the time it was peace. But that's, you know, I mean, yeah, we had the violent stuff that happened, but man, we get on the ball cart, man, and there was like scouts from the Knicks, scouts from the Harlem Globetrotters would come to PS 18, our elementary school, where we all played ball, and watch people see who they can recruit. You know? I don't know if you know Tiny Archibald, Hall of Famer, basketball. Tiny mother and my mother were best friends, man. You know, his sister Vicky and I went to school together. Tiny, you know, a guy named Ray Hodge was in the Knicks training camp, could have been a great baseball player. There are guys who were, other guys who were great ball players who did not get accepted because of their height, but some of them went on to earn their masters, their PhDs in other subjects, you know. So they, one guy, Ronald Carson, good friend of mine, we just saw him last week, an engineer, you know what I mean? We all went to school together, you know, we all played together, we all sang doo-wop together, you know what I'm saying? So it's that story that has not been told. It's that story that people do not know about the South Bronx. It's that story that I want to bring. So when you guys, your age and younger, see that, you can see that it wasn't always rough, man, and it doesn't have to be. And even though drugs came into the community, you know, at the same time the Vietnam War was going on, which was a coincidence. Yeah, we had it rough, man, but it wasn't all that. We still got through it, and we still became something, you know? And that's the story I want to tell.
And that's a great way to close this.
Well, I want to answer this gentleman.
We have another question?
Yeah, just one more.
I came in a little bit late, so you may have already answered this question, but just overarching academic preparation, what would you recommend for students who want to go into your field?
I already answered that question. No, I didn't. friend of mine once told me, be a generalist. He came to his job being a host of the show, David Hartman. You have to be a generalist. Know something about everything. Okay? That helps. But it also helps if you have a particular interest in something and have something to say about that interest. If you got a voice, singers have something to sing because they have something to say. Actors act because they have something to say. Dancers dance because they have something to say. Filmmakers make films because they have something to say. All right? And they not only have something to say, but they want other people to know about. They want to tell their story. Okay? You have a desire, follow through on that desire. And don't let anything deter you from that desire. I don't care what it is. Like I talked to a lady recently and I asked her, what do you want, in your wildest fantasy, what do you want to do? And she told me. Yeah, so do it. Do it. I don't care what it is. Do it. You may have stumbling blocks along the way. You will have obstacles along the way. You'll have bias, racial, and other in your way. Kick it out the way and do it. I once told my kids, I said, you know, when they were little, people are not going to like you for a lot of reasons. Doesn't necessarily mean because you're black. Could be your personality. It could be that people can find it difficult working with you. You know, it's not always racial. So if you're going to call racism, make sure you're right. Okay? If it's something else, find a way to correct it. If you can't correct it so that you guys can work together, go around it. Find another way to deal with it. But don't anything deter you from whatever goals that you have a desire for. Because if you do, then you cheat yourself. Now, let's say you don't make it. Let's say you don't make it to be president of the United States. All right? Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, black man, white woman, they're giving it a shot. Always try. Always try. You never know. I never thought I'd be visiting the White House. I've been there 3 times.
How's the coffee there? Good?
It's pretty good. Yeah.
I just want to...
Want to see the matches that I took from there?
He probably has a lot of stuff on eBay. I just wanted to just to reflect, because Michael, you did come in late. We met through City College. If I didn't go to CCNY, I wouldn't have met Adrian. Adrian probably wouldn't be here today because I wouldn't have known him. But I have to tell you, I went to City College, I went to NYU, I went to Columbia. Adrian and I, through the City University of New York, had some of the great teachers, and I'll name them. Kathy Collins, Dennis Danito, Joe Tavner, our history teachers, George Shapiro, whatever. We had a great liberal arts education at City that I think, bar none, to this day is still one of the best.
It's the best kept secret in
New York.
Ever. Yeah.
City College still has the Picker Film Institute under another name. Herman Liu runs the undergrad. They have a 5-year graduate program now with Davis runs. So if anyone's interested, after you leave our program, you have an in. They love speaking to our students. We have several students that are there now. It is the best kept secret.
It really is.
It was a great opportunity for us to make films and learn where we wanted to go in our career. And
we ran it.
We ran the We sure did. I had the key that said do not duplicate. I found a way in the Bronx to get it top.
We ran that. Yeah, we would take out equipment, man.
It was like a film studio. Yeah, you wanted to show. Just bring it back on time.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, nobody else knew how to deal with it. So between me, him, and Ronald Grayboy, we ran that place.
The Bronx in enthusiasm and devotion and perseverance, probably just the Bronx savviness that we had from working.
Yeah, that's funny too. We're all from the Bronx.
So we all from the Bronx. So I'm going to leave you with this. We're going to have a reception for Adrian and his honor. So a round of applause for Adrian.
Thank you. No, please, no, please, no.
Adrian, we had a sort of a little program of photos that we've been taking. So would you pose with a group photo with the class right here? No. What would Jar Jar Binks say?
OBKB.
Okay, everybody else, we're gonna take a photo with Adrian.
Oh, you know why he spoke like that? Because George's little girl, when George's daughter was a baby, she spoke like that. So George wanted him to speak like that because of her.
That's a true story. Do a look
Yeah.
on the voice of Jar Jar Binks. It's George's daughter.
Yeah.
Through Ahmed Best,
Yeah.
Adrian's son. Come on up, everyone.